Awesome.
Good. Couple of new people, couple have stayed. Good. Welcome.
That means those who stay have to hear the introduction again now.
So you get to know us really well. That is good. Welcome, Canvas Tribe. What you should know about the PL-200. We just did the unscheduled, up until 2 days ago, version of this for the model-driven people. What they should know about the Canvas side and everything. And now we're moving on to the Canvas Tribe. What you should know about the model-driven world and Dataverse and all of that mysterious cool stuff. Right?
The mysterious cool stuff without formulas, without variables, without coding, with this is
awesome.
the no-code part. Yes.
Awesome. So first we have to thank our sponsors. Without them, we would not be here. So thank you to Microsoft and all the other sponsors who are spending money and time for all of us to be here and have 2 great days. This is me. I work at a Scandinavian company called Knowit. I've been a business applications MVP since 2019. Suddenly, that's a long time suddenly. I come from the customer side, so I have no technical background. I worked with CRM for 10 years. I'm known for HR, but I don't really do much of that. And I do a lot of work on marketing. I'm actually writing a book on Dynamics marketing right now, coming out this fall, if I get to write it done. I do lots of training. So about 50% of my time the past 2 years has been training. I absolutely love it. I have done the PL-200 about once a month the past 2 years. It's always evolving and always changing, always interesting doing training for the PL-200. You can see my LinkedIn and Twitter handles, so feel free to connect with me there, and if you have any questions, you can ping me there.
Hi, I'm Michael. I work as a Power Platform consultant, and I'm Business Applications MVP. But every time I say I'm Business Applications MVP, actually, I do mention that I do have a Microsoft 365 background. And I do that because most of BizApps MVPs that I know do have a CRM background, like her. And I wanted to do the PL-200, sincerely. And then I realized that since I'm very familiar with SharePoint and with Teams and therefore with Canvas apps, that this isn't enough to do the PL-200. I do have to learn Dataverse and model-driven apps and business process flows, and this is hard. This is really difficult for me because I've never worked with that so far. Due to my background, I usually focus on user adoption, governance, and the Canvas apps, the Power Automate part actually of Power Platform. And yeah, when I realized that this is not enough for the PL-200, I asked Malin, because she has a CRM background and does lots of training, to actually help me. And then we figured out that in the PL-200 we have 2 different tribes or 2 different target audiences. The one is the one with a CRM background who know their way around Dataverse and sometimes have difficulties with, for example, Canvas apps. And that we do have those people with the M365 background who don't know anything about Dynamics, like me. So the plan was that she trains me in Dataverse and model-driven app and all this stuff that is like unknown to me. I do and ace the PL-200, and then we give this session. Unfortunately, that didn't happen because I didn't ace it and I didn't pass it.
You didn't take it?
Yes, I do have to. Then we decided we talk about what I have to learn, what I have to look out for, and not only recreate what's in the certification outline, but to really look into it, what is most important, what kind of questions are going to be there, and what is not necessary for me to know by now. And that's how we came up with this whole thing. And in this session, we are going to focus on Dataverse, Power Apps, this one time the model-driven apps, thank you, Power Automate, and there we will focus on the business process flows. We won't focus on virtual agents because we did this in the last session, and this is usually something that
there was not enough time.
There was not enough time, that as well.
basically. Too much to do.
Yeah, and we did the integration last part, and we have to focus on solutions this time. And the percentages that you see there is like the importance of the topic in the PL-200. So you can see like the bigger the bottle, the more important the topic is. So Dataverse is a very important topic for the PL-200. Dataverse, solutions, model-driven apps, and the business process flows. So this is the agenda for this session.
We're going to go through configuring Dataverse. We're going to take a look at model-driven Power Apps, talk a bit about business process flow, what, why, and all of that, and managing solutions.
The good part is, with this session, that Dataverse, model-driven apps, business process flow all build up on each other. They're like one big package. And this is very good.
Yes.
We don't have this in the other session, actually.
Oh, and we have completely forgotten. For the best questions of the session, you get a box of very awesome Norwegian milk chocolate. That is the reason Matt is here, because he has won it one time. So he comes to all my sessions, because I always bring my chocolate.
Don't ask him
Feel free to raise your hand whenever throughout the session if you have any questions. We won't be offended, because you will not remember all your questions at the end. So feel free to do them as you think about them. And as we said, the best one gets some chocolates. We have already delivered out one. We don't have a max amount, so if you have a good question, Sian, you can get another box. Otherwise, Matt will ask questions just to get it.
And you won't stop until he gets it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start.
Yes.
We have some stuff to cover. And the clicker doesn't work anymore.
Start with Dataverse. So that is your relational database. Just to have that in order, not SharePoint. Oh, yeah, instead. What is Dataverse? Dataverse contains tables, processes, and automation, and security. That is Dataverse. That's what it all contains. Your tables is your accounts, your contacts, where you store all of your information. Now, all the questions on all the Microsoft exams are always, how would Microsoft do it? Not necessarily how you actually would do it, but what is the Microsoft way of doing it? There is a difference at times. Sometimes big differences, but the answer is always, what is the out-of-the-box functionality that Microsoft wants you to do? Just to have that clear. In order to pass the certification, you need to know what a table is. You need to go through some of the options of tables, like the ownership. What does it mean if a table is owned by a user, by a team, or by an organization? What are all the differences? What can you do with that? Security is one thing. You can do security. If it's owned by a person, I can see my stuff and not all the other stuff. If the organization is the owner, well, everyone can see everything. Security is key here. And you need to take that in order, and you need to know a bit about that. What are activity tables? Emails, phone calls, fax, letters. That is an activity table. You have a bunch out of the box, and you can always create new ones. And you have your processes, so your business rules, your business process flows, and all of that. How is that combined? Communication and collaboration. What's that? What does it mean? Can you store information on the table? Can you have links? Can you add emails to this? Auditing. Can you, or do you want to audit a table? Like, do you want to track who has done what changes to a table? Sometimes yes. And, I mean, we're consultants, so it depends. Relationships is a big part of Dataverse. You need to know, how is it all connected? What is a one-to-many relationship, a many-to-many relationship, a connection, which is a custom many-to-many? How do you define all of these? What are they? Accounts and contacts. They potentially have all of these, basically. But here you see one account is connected to many contacts, because a company can have plenty of people who work there. But a contact can only be associated with one account. Never more. But what you can do, if you have an accountant or a lawyer, they work with a lot of customers, and you want to register who they work with, then you can have a connection, which is a custom many-to-many. So your accountant can be connected to these 10 companies with the role of accountant, and you can have that in your relational database. You just need to make sure that you can explain the different relationships, what are there, and this is probably where you will get the most like trick questions, or so just know what are the standard ones and what are the names of them. Because here you can get like, what kind of relationships are there? And you get 5 options, and you have to remember, oh, which one is it? So just learn that.
I think MCJ has a question.
Of course, you do.
You said that you need to think about this the way Microsoft
Yes.
think about it.
Yes.
So I work for a business, I look in Dataverse, I see an accounts table, and go, well, we don't work with accounts, we work with businesses. I don't think I need all these fields that are in there. Why should I use the accounts table rather than create my own table?
Great question, MCJ. Did someone have that issue?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And no, please repeat your answer and then go on, please.
Because when we were working on doing the training and all of this, he had that exact thing. Well, I have companies, so should I just create new tables? No. Don't always use the out-of-the-box tables for account and contacts. At least that, but also most of the activities and everything. Try to use it out of the box, because there's so much smartness, so much logic behind it that Microsoft have built over the years, that if you start on your own, yeah, it's a lot of work, and it won't do what this does. Yes?
In this case, it's a one-to-many relationship.
Yep.
Could you make a many-to-many by basically having the account table, the contact table, but then have a table in the middle as the kind of relationship table? Like, one-to-many, one-to-many.
Yes, that is how they do many-to-many relationships. So you have an intersect table, basically, and all both the out-of-the-box and the connections do that. So you have your 2 tables are connected to one intersect table. With the out-of-the-box many-to-many, us normal mortals who are not developers cannot touch that magic box in the middle. Yes, but on your connections, that is your box, and you have full overview over coming in, and you can set some things and you can change things in that intersect table. Yes. So, but please don't ever use many-to-many on contact and accounts, like the out of the box. Use connections, because.
Another question?
Great.
If someone's coming from a SQL Server background,
Yep.
or even like access databases in the past, are there any kind of key differences you would say with the relational database part of Dataverse, or is it pretty much just all the same concepts?
I'm looking at you because.
I'm really nosy for asking questions. I mean, under the hood, on-prem, it was on SQL Server. So no, not really. If you're looking for an access answer, ask me, Bradley. You're working with access, so come on.
From my perspective, Dataverse is really enterprise level access. We kind of like that in terms of when you're creating these tables, you're also creating a lot of the artifacts with it, such as forms and such like. So it kind of feels like the kind of things that, sorry, was it that?
Yeah,
If
you're
your
right.
was there was going with access. You know, kind of building that kind of that in-app form to say everything. But you know, ultimately it's a relational data store.
Yep. Thank you. And if, no, you don't see it, yay, you don't see it here. But if you go into the tables, as you say, you create the forms, you create the views, you create, and I think this is, there's been a lot of changes in the background stuff on the Power Platform the last couple of weeks. So some of these, I think, might be a bit outdated by a full week. But they are refurbishing it and making it look even prettier. And they did change some of the names, like 2 tables and columns and all of that, because it was meant to make it easier for people who are transitioning from the SQL background over to this with the same names, and just to make it more familiar. And us poor people who has worked with this for years, we still sometimes call it entities and don't know what you talk about when it's not fields. So, business rules. I love this. Again, I'm not a developer, so this is fairly simple business rule. What does it say? If the city is Oslo, then lock one field and show an error message and show another field. And if it's not Oslo, then unlock a field. This takes me about, I don't know, 10 minutes if I know my data. Prior to business rules, this was probably an hour, Java scripting, and then you had code and everything. Now I can do it myself for 10 minutes. I don't have to wait for the developer to do it. Yay! You need to know what it is and how you use it to pass the PL-200 certification. You don't need to know all of these, but these are all the different column types. They're a bit nested together, that you will find on each and every table. So text, you have small and large versions of text boxes, and you have dates, and you have some numbers, and you have some logic behind the numbers, and calculated, and roll-ups, and everything. Create a Dataverse table and try to create all of these fields and put it in a form and see how it acts. That's the best way you will ever pass the certification. Try it out yourself.
I think it's for everything that reading is not enough here.
No.
You have to actually do it and see how it works, how it reacts.
Test it
Because
out.
this is a lot of
Yeah, this is a
to
lot.
cover. Yeah.
Yeah. Security. This is still the security way of doing it. It hasn't changed for the 10 years I've worked with it, and I haven't heard anything. It works, it just looks bad. Really, really bad. And it looks more complex than it is. And you will always have in the bottom here what it means. Thank you. And then you have up top in the gray line, you have what it does. And you have every table, and you have to set. So if we're on top, we have the account. So on this, you can create your own account. You can read your own accounts. You can write, like do changes on your own account. You can delete your own stuff. Then you have the append and append to, so you can connect them to contacts or connect contacts to the accounts. And then you have the share, so you can share it with everyone. And each of these boxes, you have to go in and tick, and the more times you click it, the more green it goes until it goes red again. This is go in and click and test it out. There are some out-of-the-box security rules. Try to use them and see. And then you have business units. So if you have a company that is worldwide, your business unit can be Scotland, Norway, England, Germany. No Scots here? No, whatever. And you can have that divided into security. So I can see everything in Norway, but not everything in any of the other countries that I have access to. Then you have, well, you have the bottom one is the column level security. So my social security number can be a field that only a selected few have access to. So that specific column is restricted. And then you can connect all of this to the Azure AD groups. So you can connect your security roles to your Azure AD groups, and you can get people into the users into the AD groups and give them licenses, security roles, and access to everything and just control everything. Because if a user do not have a security role, they will not get access to the system. If you have a license or whatever you have, if you do not have a security role, you will not get a access. So, model-driven Power Apps. CRM, it will forever be CRM for me. It is CRM. Even though how many times Microsoft tried to remove CRM from the Dynamics 365 world, I mean, now we're back at the CRM fundamentals exam, which they don't have another like combined name. CRM is sales and everything is model-driven Power Apps. I actually have the new picture, see? Good. Not saying we did the presentation late or anything, but we have actually updated slides. But here you can see the account table and all the information on the account table. So model-driven apps, as we talked about before, Canvas apps, you can make pretty nice looking Canvas apps if you know a bit of code or PowerFX or anything. Model-driven apps, it's data first and data modeling first. That is your focus and processes.
So they're never pretty or good looking.
They are what they are, but all our buttons work.
All buttons work if you know the code.
This is an ever ongoing discussion, but you can make them pretty with PCF components, Power Apps component framework. And you can, I don't do that, Benedict does that. But here you have an overview over everything. And once you have that done, you build your forms and you collect, basically, you do everything in Dataverse. And once you're done with the business modeling, then you put it all in an app. And then you have a done app. So the actual making the app is not the big part of it. It's the data and the processes, what's going to happen. And then you create all your views. And then you create your actual app, which, well.
So a model-driven app is basically views and forms for a table.
Yes.
Nothing more.
Processes.
Processes, okay.
Lots of SSS. And you hear, this is the modern look of creating it, because the old, it's still in preview, I think, technically. But the old one is horrible, and I won't expose you to that. You first choose a table or a dashboard or a custom page, and then you find your table. So I've chosen the account table. You can add more, and you have an app. Ta-da! Codey stuff.
And not necessarily for the PL-200.
No.
So, good question, but not relevant here.
Good question, but no. No, but, and as I said, this is a picture from the Dynamics 365 Customer Service Hub, CRM. That's a model-driven Power App. So if you come from a CRM background, congratulations, you're a Power Apps consultant. You've worked with years for model-driven apps in Dataverse. Same thing. Just different names. A lot of different names on everything. Everything's got a different name now.
Okay, so model-driven apps. Then
done
we
with.
come to business process flows, which I really like, kind of. And
When you can find them in your solutions.
yeah. I talked about flows in the last session, and I think even if you haven't attended the last session, most people know a flow or two, where you have like a trigger, and then you can define multiple steps and define what is happening in the flow. For example, if you get a new Teams message, or if you get a new email, or somebody puts a file into a SharePoint, then something should happen. And so we build the flow step by step. Business process flows are nothing like that. They have the same name, a similar name, but they are different actually. There are but a quite good possibility to guide users through a certain process, and they make sure that the data handling basically is done in the same way over and over again, and they are built completely upon Dataverse, so they are built upon tables. In a normal flow, you have a trigger and certain steps. They don't have to do anything with tables necessarily, but business process flows are simply, or not simply, are solemnly built on tables. And we have actually seen a business process flow in your app.
Yep.
This is it, the red thingy up there. This is the business process flow, and this is one I've used from the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, because it was already there. And you can see you have 3 steps here. This is the flow approval business process flow. This is just the name, and we have 3 steps: the validate, make our business requirements, assess risks, complete admin review. Those 3 steps, we guide our user with our business process flow through these 3 steps, and every of those steps has certain actions that you need to do. We can see that here on the first step, you have to check if Maker provided business requirements, this is, and you have to confirm the business impact. So with each and every step, we can define what our user has to do in that part of the business process flow. And if we go through the flow, then we can see we go to the next step, where our user has to assess the risk. And then in the end, we are completed and our business process flow is done. So we guide our user through the steps that he has to do, but those steps don't necessarily happen automatically, like in a classical cloud flow, like when we get a new email, for example. We have certain steps that our user has to go through.
But a business process flow step can also, you're coming to that?
Yes,
Trigger.
obviously.
Sure. Okay.
So business process flow work different from normal flows. And even the designer looks a little bit difficult, or not difficult, but different actually.
Old.
Yeah, maybe old. So this is under the hood from the business process flow we saw earlier. We have those 3 steps: the validate, the make business requirements. This was the first step. Then we have the second step, the assess risk, and we have the third step, the complete admin review. Those 3 steps, we saw them earlier. What we can see here, there's a certain condition, and Marlin talked about conditions earlier. Here's check if business impact is high. If no, then we have to assess the risk ourselves. If yes, the user is to provide a mitigation plan. So in this case that we saw earlier, we can see that the business impact isn't assessed as high, so we saw the step assess risk. So, and with each step, we can define what's happening and what our user is about to do there. And I think I have an example for that. Just let me see. I think I'm zooming in here. Right. If we would add another stage or step, I always call them steps, but actually they're called stages. We can see that if we want to add something new, we can basically just add 2 things: stages and conditions.
Oh, and this is important for the certification. What are they called? What is a step? What is an action? What can you do? Know that.
Yes. So from the base level, we can add new stages and conditions, but we can also add data steps, workflows, and action steps, and flow steps. But those are in the preview. Those are not in the
Workflows aren't in preview. They've been there for some time, but I think
I will get to that later. Yeah. So if we will add something new that we can see, here we have our action steps, data steps, and workflows. And this is basically, if you've seen the step earlier, you can add a an action step that we've seen a user has to do something, like has to define a certain value, or has to define a certain value. That is the one thing, like assess a risk or just click on a certain value. And you can also add workflows. And this is something important because Microsoft has their own opinion here as well. If we would add a workflow, this is basically something where we add automation in a business process flow, right? And this is something that I really like, actually. If you would create a workflow, then you can see this menu, and you can see the yellow part. We recommend using Microsoft Flow instead of background workflows. Background workflows is something you've been working with for a while, I guess.
Since the start. And like you see, Microsoft Flow, that's Power Automate. So the yellow band hasn't been updated since it came. Neither has the UI. So it's,
But this is the important part. You can combine business process flows with cloud flows or Power Automate cloud flows. And Microsoft wants you to do that. So this will be 100% certain a question in the PL-200. Which should you use, a background workflow or a Microsoft Power Automate flow? Microsoft wants you to use the Power Automate flows.
That's a good rule. If you do get that question,
Yes.
in 90% of the scenarios, Flow will be the answer, or Power Automate will be the answer, not workflows.
Yeah.
What are the 10% of the cases?
Bad luck.
So just never use background workflows.
Well, if it's for background stuff. So if it needs to happen in the background,
And then it's marked clearly in the question.
Yeah.
This has to be something like a certain scenario. This has to be done in the background. Then background workflows would be the correct answer. But
yes.
What's the difference between a background workflow and a Power Automate workflow?
yes, that is a good question.
Yes. MCJ had a session in Brussels, if I'm not mistaken, as to when you were supposed to use what.
Do you want me to answer it?
I mean, I'm making you work for the chocolates.
In one sentence.
So, in one sentence, I never use workflows. Always use Power Automate. I've not built a workflow in the last 4 years. The reason why people are hanging on to it is because you have real-time workflows which run synchronously, and they allow you to actually refresh pages and actually see visual things happen as you go through, which is generally the reason why you use a workflow over a cloud flow. Cloud flows run asynchronously, so they run in the background, which is why it's actually telling you to do this and run it in the background. You can also trigger and force cloud flows to run synchronously. So in my mind, there is really no reason why you could ever use a workflow. Even the fact, and as Marlon said, the UI is not updated, which means that some of the newer technology that is in the platform, things like file and image fields, if you try and create a workflow with one of those in the form, you can upload the form because it doesn't support it. So you have to then maintain two forms, you have to have all this overhead. So just use Power Automate.
Which is once again the best recommendation for the certification as well. The answer is use Power Automate.
So the 10% is the, if you need something to kind of happen, force a stop of the user to write to the database before it happens is what Max will probably say. But in my mind, I can get around that. But for an exam, your data is not necessary.
So, and the point is, and that leads actually to the to how to distinguish business process flows from Power Automate flows. That's what I was mentioned earlier. In Power Automate cloud flows, you have a certain trigger. You don't have to choose a trigger in business process flows because this is only works on tables, as you can see here. Business process flows only work on tables for Dataverse. That's why they are built upon Dataverse, and they are so much connected. So they are called process flows, but they're not quite the same like cloud flows. It's actually something different.
And they show in a model-driven Power App.
Yes, and they show in the part. Yeah, so they are built on top. Next, solutions. Control everything. So what are solutions? Solutions are a very important part. And for the PL-200, you need to know what are solutions. There are two types of them, managed and unmanaged. You need to know what publisher are, dependencies, and environment variables.
Yeah.
I guess so. That are the things that you need to know. And we'll just guide you through the concepts. What are solutions?
And again, this is the Microsoft answer you are looking for. So there are some people that have different opinions on managed and unmanaged solutions for the certification. Don't listen to anyone else. Read what Microsoft is saying about, because they are very clear on how this should work.
Yes.
And opinions don't matter in their certification.
So solutions are basically something like a box. When you build something with the Power Platform, an app which is connected to a flow and is based on a table, for example, you need different things to make your Power Platform, the solution, work. You need connection reference, security roles, whatever you need, you can put it into one solution. Basically, you put it all in there. And that is a solution. A box that contains everything that you need to run an app or a flow or whatever you do. And they come in two forms, unmanaged solutions. That means they are not managed. This box is still open. You can still go in there and change things, delete things, add things. And the other one are the managed solutions that are like a closed box. You can't go in there and edit things. And this is basically the that what Microsoft wants to hear. This one is managed, you can't change anything. Unmanaged, you still can't change anything. The scenario for that is if you would build an app for a customer and the app needs flows and tables and security roles to function, then you put it all in a managed solution and give it to your customer, so your customer can't customize it anymore. He can't work with it anymore. Because otherwise they could break it and delete important stuff and then it doesn't work anymore. And that is the Microsoft idea about unmanaged and managed solutions. These also solutions are the foundation for an application lifecycle management process, but this is not really part of the PL-200 actually, but solutions get more important after that.
Yeah. And of course, the Microsoft, your developer environment or developing environment should be unmanaged solutions, because that is where you do everything. That's the only place you should have unmanaged solutions. Test, managed. Production, managed. That is the way of Microsoft way of doing it. You should never ever do changes in test or production. It should always happen in development, and then you export them as managed solutions in test, and if there are changes, you go back to your developer environment, and there you do changes, and then you do another, and you have patches and everything, and you need to just read what it is and how it works and everything for the certification. I mean, the PL-200 training is 4 days straight. It used to be 5 days. It is 4 days, not 2 hours. Just to, yes, question.
Just, are there any recommendations or any recommendations about using system tables?
Yeah, dependencies is the worst pain ever. Because if you take a solution where you have a Dynamics app installed, and you have sales, to say, you have installed that in your developer environment, and you package your solutions, and you get accounts, and you add everything from accounts, and then you try to take it over to a pure Power Apps environment with no Dynamics, it will fail. Because accounts has dependencies to absolutely everything. It is one of the core
dependencies later on.
Okay, sorry.
So we covered dependencies a little bit, just as you need for the PL-200.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But before that, we just talk about publishers, because this is an interesting concept that Microsoft wants to hear every time. If you look at your solutions that you have, they always come with the hint, is it managed, yes or no, and what's the publisher. I do have different publishers here. The Power Platform admin is from the Power Platform Center of Excellence Starter Kit, and I got the VGR publisher. This is my own publisher just next to it. This is an unmanaged solution with a different publisher. And the publisher just said who has published this app or this solution. You can define your own one, you can use an out-of-the-box one, but the idea is that you can always track back who is responsible for that app and who built it, or the solution, actually.
And if you're a Microsoft partner, you can add your contact details.
Exactly.
So that the next poor guy that comes into the solution knows who to contact if there are issues, or when you don't have documentation, because nobody does documentation.
Yes, and that part of the PL-200, using solutions, using managed and unmanaged solutions, different publisher, leads to how to deliver applications to a customer that builds up on that. That is the foundation work that you need to do here. And there you have also the dependencies, and we come to that now. Every solution that you have that contains apps and flows and tables, security roles and connection reference and whatsoever, usually they depend on each other. If I have a flow that is built upon a table, if I delete the table, the flow won't work anymore. And these are the dependencies. If you put all these flows and tables and security roles in a solution and you want to delete the tables, Microsoft won't let you delete that because that would cause the flow to fail. So you have different layers of dependencies that you need to work through if you really want to delete something, especially from a solution. This is a whole rabbit hole on its own. If you have publishers, different layers of publishers and with different layers of dependencies, which is really, really complex and complicated actually. But for the PL-200, since this is the foundation work, you just need to know that there are dependencies and what does it mean? So it means things are dependent from each other and you can't delete just what you want because then the whole solution won't work anymore. And
you can't lift the solution out of a place where it's got dependencies and not take the dependency parts over because you won't import it. And if you first have dependency, good luck.
yes. And here we have the dependency. That is an example that we have from the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. We can see here that we have what's inside our solution. Come on. We have a flow, a Power Apps app, and a couple of bunch of flows more. And we can see this is required by something else, and it's dependent. Is this an entire relationship, entity relationship, or the process is dependent? But you can see this is quite a menu on its own that is showing you the dependencies, and it's not active here, but there are even solution layers where you have different solutions upon solutions, and then dependencies upon dependencies. This can be really complex, but you just need the ground rules to see what it is and that there are dependencies and what that leads to for the certification.
Like Ian Connolly says, it's a pain in the hoop.
And that's true.
Yep.
But this gets more important with the other certifications actually. Right?
Yes, but this was like way back. This was part of the certification when it was called 7-something everything. And then when they first came with the PL-200, they had removed everything that was solutions. And for all of us that had done the previous ones and are doing training and are training new consultants coming in, we're like, where are solutions? That is important. Because if you put something out, I know that if I come into a customer and I see a column named new _, I know that has been done by someone who doesn't have a clue, who has done it wrong. And I know that I then had to add more hours than I would normally do. Just because the publisher, it sets the prefix of the columns. So for my company, we use 3 letters that's our stuff. That's how we know what columns we have made. New _, if you see that in any columns you're creating or any business process flows you're creating, like you're doing it wrong. You are outside of the solution, basically. Don't do that. So if you only learned one thing today, that's it. I'm happy. So we do have a lot of links and people to follow and everything. We have collected a massive amount of links for you. By the end of the slides, there's a QR code to Michael's repository on GitHub, because we have collected everything there so that you don't have to write down and take pictures and how did we spell that? So you can just go and click on that. These are some of the people to follow. They're really good ones, and they write a lot about how you do the certification, what is needed, all the information you need to know. Do you wanna?
For the PL-200, just an example.
And everything else, basically.
There is one link from M. Darcy, Touched CRM Girl, Getting Started with Power Virtual Agent, and she covers everything that you need to know for the PL-200 for Power Virtual Agents. There is more, of course, but for the PL-200, that's what you need to know. That's why we choose these blogs. This is basically your thing.
Yeah,
So go on.
PP Weekly, they do the work for you. They go through all the information and all the blogs, not all of them, but the people they know and the new stuff. They follow 5 people that are going through, like scouring the web and finding blogs and videos and events and news that has come and all the important stuff, and they put it together in one newsletter. And you get that every Monday. So when you come to work on Monday, the first thing you do is open the newsletter and see, okay, so what are the new blogs that came last week? Just so that you don't have to do it.
Usually they have about 10 new entries or something like that. It's not that they have 50 or 20 or something.
Yeah, and they also have the small icons, so that if you are a maker, if you are a developer, so they have tagged it by the level you are on. And then you also have the Developers Weekly, so that is for the developers.
If you prefer paper, there is somebody called Julian Sharp, who's not here today. He wrote a book about it. And this is like a big, 200, 300 pages,
yeah.
something like this. Everything you need to know about the PL-200 is in there. You can get it through Amazon. This is not really paid advertisement that we do here, but it is a really good book, and it is really, nearly everything's in there.
Yeah, and of course, there are in-person training as well to do the PL-200 training. That is a 4-day course, just so you know. And then you have just people to follow the entity relationship diagram, because how does Dataverse look? How is everything connected? What are all your tables in Dataverse? How does the relationship of everything work? How does it look? Carl, sorry, has created a tool that he has in XRM Toolbox. XRM Toolbox is a tool you need to have if you're working with Dataverse. It's a free tool. It's amazing. Just for the views, it takes it can take an hour to create a view and get everything you want, all the columns you want, and headlines, and the order and the size of everything. And if you want to do that for half an hour then. If you want to do that for 50 views, out of the box, you have to do that 50 times. With XRM Toolbox, you have an amazing tool called View Layout Replicator. You do it once, you go into XRM Toolbox, and you say, this view, I want to copy to my 50 views, and you press publish, and you're done.
So since Dataverse is so easy and comprehensible, there are tools that make it even more easy to understand it.
So that we don't have to be developers to work in it.
Yeah, no, they are really interesting tools.
Ton of YouTube videos. I want to give a shout out, of course, to MCJ, Matt Collins-Jones, who has done the insane feature of doing one YouTube video per day for 360, at least 5 days straight on Power Automate. That is insane. One video a day for a full year on Power Automate. That's how simple that is.
Absolutely. And this is a QR code and the link for the GitHub repository where we have all the links and the slides. I think the latest updates of the slides is going to be in there today. And we update this regularly to see if we have something new. Of course, there's more information out there, but everything that we covered here and is important for the PL-200 should be in there. And if not, just ping me. And we just
Smile.
need to do the speaker selfie, and then we are done. Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you very
So,
much for your time and your
Again,
attention.
thank you for sponsors and everything. Go
Oh, yeah.
say hello to them. And thank you very much. And do